There comes a moment in every relationship, whether romantic, emotional, or even platonic, when silence speaks louder than words. You stop calling. You stop texting. You stop trying to explain yourself. And suddenly, something profound begins to happen in the other person's mind. Carl Jung believed that our relationships are not just social interactions. They are psychological mirrors. Each person we meet reflects back to us parts of our unconscious, desires, fears, wounds, and shadows we haven't yet faced. So when you pull away, you are not simply disappearing from someone's daily life. You are activating their unconscious. When you stop reaching out, the person begins to feel the space you left behind. At first, they might interpret it as rejection, confusion, or even manipulation. But deeper within, something else begins to unfold. Jung would say that the unconscious projection, the image they once had of you, starts to dissolve. The fantasy they built about who you were begins to clash with the reality of your absence. And that's when the true relationship begins, not between two egos, but between two psyches. Your withdrawal creates a psychological vacuum, and the human mind cannot tolerate emptiness. The other person is now forced to face themselves, their need for validation, control, attachment, or even fear of abandonment. They begin to wonder, why do I need this person's attention so badly? What part of me feels incomplete without their presence? Jung would call this the moment of confrontation with the shadow, the part of ourselves that holds the pain, the dependency, the fear of not being loved. When you stop chasing, you stop feeding their illusion, you invite them into self-awareness, even if they resist it. At a symbolic level, your silence becomes a teacher. It shows them what they were truly seeking. Not you, but the reflection of their own unmet needs. This is why distance can often reveal more about a relationship than closeness ever could. While constant contact keeps the illusion alive, distance brings truth to the surface. According to Jung, all true relationships are alchemical. They burn, purify, and transform. By stepping back, you allow both sides to undergo this inner transformation. And whether the relationship survives or not, the process of individuation, the journey toward wholeness, has already begun. So when you stop reaching out, you are not playing a game. You are simply withdrawing your energy from the illusion and returning it to your center. You are saying, without words, I no longer need to chase love. I am ready to meet it consciously. To understand what happens in his mind when you stop reaching out, we must look deeper into Jung's concept of projection. Projection occurs when someone attributes their own inner qualities, desires, fears, wounds onto another person. In love, this is almost inevitable. We fall, not for the person themselves, but for the image they awaken within us. When you were present, when you constantly reached out, your energy fed his projection. You became the stage where his unconscious drama unfolded. His need to be desired, his fear of being abandoned, his ego's hunger for attention. You were, in Jungian terms, the carrier of his anima, the feminine image within his psyche. But when you stop reaching out, you disrupt that psychological play. The projection begins to fade, and he is left facing himself. At first, this can feel like disorientation, or even anger. He might think, she changed, she's cold, she stopped caring. But what's really happening is a withdrawal of projection, and it's one of the most powerful moments in any emotional connection, because now he is forced to see where his feelings truly come from. Jung taught that every emotional reaction we have toward another person is, in some way, a message from the unconscious. If he feels rejected, it reveals his inner child's fear of being unworthy. If he feels indifferent, it may show emotional repression. If he starts missing you deeply, it's not necessarily about you. It's about the part of himself that you represented. Your absence becomes a mirror. And mirrors, Jung said, are sacred tools for awakening. This is why detachment is not cruelty, it's consciousness. When you stop seeking validation from someone, you return that energy to yourself. And by doing so, you unconsciously invite the other person to do the same, to stop seeking love externally and begin finding it within. In many ways, your silence is more powerful than any argument or message. It speaks directly to the soul, bypassing logic and ego. If he truly values you, if there was a genuine psychological connection, your absence will stir something profound within him. He might not understand it consciously, but his psyche will feel the shift. He'll start reflecting, maybe for the first time, on what you really meant to him. And even if he doesn't return, something inside him will change, because no one forgets the person who forced them to face themselves. As Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. By stepping back, you have allowed the reaction to occur. You have become not a pursuer, but a catalyst for his transformation, and your own. There's a strange kind of peace that begins to grow once you stop reaching out. At first, silence feels heavy, almost unbearable. The urge to text, to explain, to fix things can feel overwhelming. But with time, something inside begins to shift. You start realizing that your need to be understood was never truly about him. It was about you trying to prove your worth. And when you stop chasing, that energy, once directed outward, begins to return home. Carl Jung called this process withdrawal projection. It's one of the most powerful and painful transformations of the psyche. When we stop projecting our emotional needs onto another person, we reclaim those lost fragments of our soul. You begin to see the truth. You were never incomplete. You were simply giving parts of yourself away, believing that love required losing yourself. When you step back, you stop feeding the illusion that love means pursuit. You start learning a higher form of love rooted in self-awareness. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You stop demanding that another person fill the space that only your self-understanding can occupy. And something incredible happens. You begin to vibrate differently. When you no longer seek love from desperation or fear, you radiate authenticity. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to be, but because your energy is aligned with truth. This is the stage where many people notice a paradox. The moment you stop chasing is often the moment the other person begins to notice your absence more deeply. It's not manipulation, it's energetic balance. Jung would say that relationships are psychic ecosystems. When one person stops overgiving, the system naturally attempts to rebalance itself. He may start remembering moments with you, sensing something missing, or even questioning his choices. But the real miracle is what happens inside you. Your silence transforms into inner sovereignty, the understanding that your peace is not dependent on someone else's attention. This is when you begin to live from your center, the same center Jung described as the self, the archetype of wholeness, the union of conscious and unconscious. From this place, love is no longer a transaction. It becomes an expression of your completeness. So if you find yourself wondering what he's thinking while you stay silent, remember, it's not just him who is being affected. You are transforming too. Your detachment is not rejection. It's evolution. It's the moment when you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself. As Jung beautifully said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Silence is not empty. It's full of energy, memory, and meaning. When you stop reaching out, your absence begins to echo inside his psyche like a quiet but persistent vibration. He might not realize it immediately, but your energy lingers. In Jungian terms, you become a symbol in his unconscious, a figure representing something he cannot yet fully understand. At first, he may resist this feeling. He might distract himself, deny that he misses you, or even convince himself that he has moved on. But the unconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to energy, and your absence carries weight. Jung believed that every person we deeply connect with leaves a psychic imprint, an energetic signature that interacts with our inner world long after physical contact ends. When you stop giving him attention, the energetic exchange that once flowed outward suddenly stops. He begins to feel that emptiness not just emotionally, but spiritually. He might begin to replay moments in his mind, analyzing words you said, wondering what changed. That's his ego trying to rationalize what his soul is already feeling. This is a law of psychic compensation, one of Jung's key insights. When one side of the psyche becomes unbalanced, the unconscious compensates to restore equilibrium. If you rely too heavily on your attention for validation, your silence forces the psyche to find that validation internally. And that's where transformation begins. If he chooses awareness, this silence will push him to grow. He may start reflecting on his own behavior, his emotional needs, or the way he shows up in relationships. He may begin to confront the parts of himself he's ignored, the ones you once mirrored to him so perfectly. But if he resists awareness, he'll seek another external source to fill the void you left, and the cycle will repeat until life brings him another mirror. Either way, your silence has done its job. It has activated his unconscious, just as it awakened yours. What he thinks when you stop reaching out is rarely about the surface. It's not about your messages, your voice, or your absence. It's about what you represent. The lost connection to his own inner feminine, his emotional truth, his vulnerability. And that's why he can't simply forget you, because you were never just a person to him. You were a symbol, a reflection of the part of himself he's still learning to integrate. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. When you stop reaching out, you give him that terrifying, transformative opportunity to face himself. When the noise fades, when the messages stop, and when the waiting turns into stillness, something sacred begins to emerge. It's not the end of love. It's the rebirth of awareness. Carl Jung believed that real love can only exist between two individuated beings, two souls who have faced themselves deeply enough to meet without illusion. Most relationships, however, are not born from wholeness but from projection. We fall in love with what we think we see, not what truly is. We chase attention, validation, and the comfort of being needed. But when you stop reaching out, you're breaking that unconscious cycle. You are forcing both yourself and the other person to see what's real and what was only fantasy. He begins to realize that your silence is not punishment. It is a mirror, showing him his dependence on external energy. It confronts him with a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. We do not miss others. We miss the parts of ourselves that they awaken. This realization can be deeply uncomfortable, even painful. But Jung taught that pain is not an enemy. It's a message from the soul. Every feeling of emptiness, every longing, every unanswered thought, these are signals pointing toward the work that must be done within. When you stop reaching out, you give him the space to do that work. You stop being his emotional crutch, his mirror, his projection. You give him back to himself. And in doing so, you give yourself back to you. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating every fragment of who we are. It's not easy. It often begins with loss, with silence, with distance, with the collapse of what we thought love should be. But out of that silence, a more authentic connection becomes possible. Because here's the paradox Jung understood so well. When you stop chasing someone, you stop treating them as an object of desire, and they begin to appear to you as a subject, a real person. That's when the relationship shifts from possession to connection, from need to consciousness. He may start to think about you more deeply now, not as someone who once adored him, but as someone who saw him. And that realization, when it finally dawns, carries enormous psychological power. He begins to feel respect, curiosity, even admiration for the energy you now embody, because your silence radiates something words never could: self-respect, balance, and inner strength. Jung once said, "Until you learn to love yourself fully, every relationship will be an attempt to fill that void." By stepping away, you are no longer trying to fill anyone's void or your own. You have moved from attachment to awareness, from need to freedom. If he truly has the capacity for growth, he will sense that. He may reach out again, but this time from a different place. Not to control, not to seek validation, but to reconnect with authenticity. And if he doesn't, it doesn't mean the connection was meaningless. It means its purpose was fulfilled. In Jungian terms, every encounter is a psychic initiation. People enter our lives to awaken parts of us that were sleeping. When the lesson is learned, the energy shifts and both souls evolve. So if you're still wondering what he's thinking while you stay silent, here's the truth. He's thinking about you far more deeply than he did when you were available. But more importantly, you are finally thinking about yourself. You've stepped out of the unconscious pattern of giving and into the conscious act of being.